Hello world, it's Austin. You know that most weeks we talk about what it means to be transgender and Christian, but this week we're going to be looking at just one part of that equation. We're going to be doing a little bit of Transgender 101. Recently I wrote a blog post, which I'll link down below, about the importance of educating and learning more about LGBT language. We can't assume that everybody who wants to support us knows what we're talking about all the time. Many people in our church communities are coming to understand what it means to be gay or lesbian or bisexual, but lots of people still have no understanding or concept of what being transgender is. If we want to help people understand, we have to be willing to educate. So in that spirit, here are my answers to 6 questions about what it means to be transgender. Number 1, what does transgender mean? Transgender is an umbrella term that covers a lot of different identities. In short, the word transgender or trans means to move across or between genders. Someone who's transgender identifies as a gender other than the one they were assigned at birth by the doctor who looked at their genitals and said, it's a boy or it's a girl. On a related note, the word for somebody who does identify with the gender they were assigned at birth is cisgender, cis being the prefix that means on the same side. There are also 2 acronyms you'll hear a lot in the transgender community. One is FTM for female to male, and one is MTF for male to female. Someone who is FTM, for instance, was assigned female at birth but identifies as male, like me. Number 2, why do people talk about the difference between sex and gender? Well, because they're different. Gender studies have come a long way in the last 50 years, and we've come to understand that who we are and what being male and female means is a lot more than just what's between our legs. The term sex, then, is used to talk about your primary physical characteristics, or your genitals. Gender, on the other hand, encompasses your social and mental characteristics. Gender refers to the attitudes and feelings and behaviors that cultures assign to what it means to be either male or female. Transgender people experience their sex and gender very differently, while cisgender people experience sex and gender so similarly that it's oftentimes hard to tell them apart. Number 3, is being trans a mental illness? No, being trans is not a mental illness. The Diagnostics Manual for psychologists and psychiatrists and other mental health professionals used to say that transgender people were suffering from gender identity disorder. After a lot more research, we found that being trans is not in itself a disorder. What we feel and the problem we have is called gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is a feeling of distress. It's anxiety and sometimes depression that has to do with your brain and your body not quite matching up. Think of it this way, if you don't drink any water for a day, you're going to be very, very thirsty. That thirst can make you uncomfortable, it can ruin your concentration, it can get in the way of your work, it can make you crabby. And ignoring your thirst for a long period of time is really bad for your health. You can get dehydrated and maybe eventually even die. However, that doesn't mean being thirsty is a sickness, you're just a person that needs water. In the same way, being trans isn't a sickness, it just means that you need some help dealing with the dysphoria. Number 4, how do trans people transition? Some trans people choose to physically transition to change their body to match up with their gender identity. Not all trans people physically transition. Some trans people don't feel like they need to change anything about their body to be themselves. Others choose to take hormones to prompt their body to take on more stereotypically masculine or feminine characteristics. Taking hormones prompts your body to do what it would normally do if your body naturally made those hormones itself. So by taking hormones, you're not turning your body into somebody else's, you're just giving it the signal to start doing what it was already capable of doing. Some trans people may also decide to get surgery to change their body. Trans people who were assigned female at birth may choose to get a mastectomy, also known as top surgery, to masculinize their chest. Both male-identified and female-identified trans people may choose to get genital surgery to better align their body with the rest of their gender identity. Number 5, as a trans ally, what shouldn't I do? Humans are social creatures, and as we live together, we find out pretty quickly that words and actions can unintentionally hurt people if we aren't educated in better ways of speaking. So keeping that in mind, let's talk about 2 things not to do. First of all, when we talk about being transgender, we always talk about it as an adjective, not a verb. The word transgender describes a person, but the word transgendered assumes that something happened to that person to make them trans. You wouldn't say an African American person was blacked, and so you wouldn't say a transgender person was transgendered. Both transgender and black are descriptors that talk about who a person is, but adding that ED on the end takes away a little bit of that personhood. Second, never ask any trans person about anything to do with their genitals or surgery. These are intensely personal things, and so before you ask any questions about that kind of thing, think to yourself, would I be super uncomfortable if somebody asked me this question? Another good thing to ask yourself is this person's body any of my business? And number 6, what should trans allies do? If you have a friend or family member who's trans, the most important thing you can do for them is to believe them. If someone comes up to you and says that they have finally figured out that they're transgender, don't argue with them and don't ask for them to prove it. Chances are they've been thinking about this for a very, very long time, and they know their feelings and their thoughts a lot better than you do. Even if you can't support them right away, believe that they feel what they say they feel. The second best thing you can do for your trans family and friends is to use their preferred name and pronouns. It can take some getting used to, and you might stumble over it for a while, that's normal, but when you make a real effort to use a person's preferred name and pronouns, it creates a safe and loving environment. When trans people are looking for a welcoming space, the first thing we ask is, do these people value me enough as a person to use the right language? I hope this video has been a good start toward understanding transgender identities. There are tons of other things we could cover, so if you have other questions that you think would be good to cover in a Transgender 101 video, put them down in the comments below. I hope you're all doing well, and we'll see you back here next week for another video on what it means to be transgender and Christian. Peace.